So this is a reading and discussion of the poem Ellis Island by Joseph Bruchac. And this poem is actually in your Springboard book, as well as information about the author. Joseph Bruchac, born 1942, is an award-winning writer and professional storyteller. He grew up in a small town in the foothills of the Adirondack Mountains. As a child of the Abenaki Indian ancestry, Bruchac wanted to tell his children the tales of his tribe and others and sought out Native elders to learn more about Native American storytelling. His first book of stories was published in 1975. Bruchac has since written dozens of books for children and adults that seek to promote and preserve Native American stories and cultures. So his poem, Ellis Island. Beyond the red brick of Ellis Island, where the two Slavic children, who became my grandparents, waited the long days of quarantine, after leaving the sickness, the old empires of Europe, a circle-lined ship slips easily on its way to the island of the tall woman, green as dreams of forests and meadows, waiting for those who'd worked 1,000 years, yet never owned their own. Like millions of others, I too came to this island, 9 decades the answerer of dreams. Yet only one part of my blood loves that memory. Another voice speaks of native lands within this nation, lands invaded when the earth became owned, lands of those who followed the changing moon, knowledge of the seasons in their veins. All right, so we have 3 stanzas here for this poem. And we start with the first stanza of this image of 2 immigrants, 2 Slavic children. So they're from Slovakia, which is in the area of Hungary and Ukraine and the Czech. So in that area of Europe. And these 2 children became his grandparents. So there's a juxtaposition of the passage of time here. We go from being children to grandparents in one line. And they waited a long time for the quarantine, so that there was probably sickness in Europe when they left. It says they left sickness. So they had to wait at Ellis Island until they were allowed to go into the country. But also the way that the line is written, after leaving the sickness, the old empires of Europe, there's also an implication that the actual countries that they left were sick, not just the people, and that those empires were old and not thriving anymore. A circle-lined ship slips easily on its way to the island of the tall woman. So Circle Line is a brand of ships. It's a company of ships. And of course, the tall woman, who's green, is the Statue of Liberty. So they are coming to Ellis Island to be admitted to the United States. And we go from the image of the Statue of Liberty, who's green, to the green forests and meadows. So the dreams are green and the forest and meadows are green. So it's life, it's vibrant, it's hope, waiting for those who have worked 1,000 years and never owned their own. So they weren't able to own property in Europe, but now they could come here, they could live a dream, and they could own property in the United States. The middle stanza is in between, and it represents a shift. The man who is the grandchild of the 2 immigrants is in the middle. Like millions of others, I too come to this island, 9 decades the answerer of dreams. So he is standing in Ellis Island 90 years after his grandparents came, and he is the fulfillment of their dreams that to come to the country. And yet, the 3rd stanza shifts. So we had the immigrants in the first stanza talking of their dreams and the hope of the United States. We have their grandchild in the middle. And then the last stanza is the Native Americans who are already in the country. So this man is a mixture of the immigrants and the Native Americans. because he says only one part of my blood loves that memory, the memory of the immigration. Another voice speaks of native lands within this nation. So the other half of his blood, or the other part of his blood, saw the immigration as an invasion instead of as a fulfillment of dreams. Lands invaded when the earth became owned. So, again, talking about ownership of the land, and the Native Americans didn't believe that you could own the land. And so it says, lands of those who followed the changing moon, the knowledge of the seasons in their vein. So it belonged to them in the sense that they lived here and they moved around in it, but they didn't own it in the sense that we own property today. So the author has given us the two contrasting sides, the joy or happiness or hopefulness of coming to America and fulfilling the dreams, but also the side of feeling like they're being invaded and overrun and losing their land and dreams that they formerly had. And that is Ellis Island.